I used to be the kind of guy who lived for the late shift. Peace, quiet, no distractions. Just me, the soft hum of the servers, and the click of my keyboard. At Pinnacle Tech Solutions, that kind of quiet was a luxury. Our office was one of those generic modern places tucked behind a strip mall in Albuquerque, 2 floors. Glass doors, lots of gray carpet, and plants nobody remembered to water. It was October when it happened. I remember because they just put up a skeleton in the break room, cheap plastic thing with googly eyes. The night started like any other. I stayed late to finish up some documentation for a software rollout. Everyone else had cleared out by 6:30. By 7 o'clock, the building was quiet. Just the low drone of air conditioning and the occasional mechanical thump of the elevator settling. Then, around 8:15, I heard the cleaning crew arrive. It started with the usual, the rolling of carts, faint conversation in Spanish, the soft whrrr of a vacuum in the hallway. Nothing unusual. The cleaning crew usually came every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around the same time. I'd seen them dozens of times. A short, older man with salt and pepper hair who mopped the bathrooms. A younger woman who vacuumed, and sometimes a third guy who just took out trash. They were polite, kept to themselves, never said much, but I'd always wave. That night, I remember hearing the vacuum buzz outside my office around 8:30. I glanced out and saw someone walk past, blue uniform, dark hair. Same crew. I kept working. Time slipped by. Eventually I realized it was after 9 o'clock. I leaned back, stretched, and decided to pack up. As I stood, I remembered I hadn't seen the vacuum or heard any chatter in a while. Usually, by this time, someone would still be cleaning the lobby or emptying the little bins under each desk. I figured I'd swing by and say have a good night like I usually did. I walked out into the hallway, expecting to hear footsteps, or at least a distant vacuum. Nothing. Total silence. Which was odd. I passed the break room clean. No mop bucket. No cleaning cart. Checked the lobby lights were dimmed. Trash bins tucked neatly into place. No one. Not a soul. I even called out, "Hola, dough bean." No answer. The hair on my neck started to rise. I walked to the bathrooms, both of them spotless. No mop water. No sign of anyone having been there at all. It was like they had never come. But I knew they had. I'd heard them. I'd seen them. I turned and headed toward the side entrance where they usually parked their van. It's a kind of old, loud, white thing with peeling decals. I stepped outside into the chilly night. The lot was empty. Totally empty. My car sat alone, under the humming streetlight. No van, no people, just stillness. That was when I realized my stomach had dropped. Not from fear, exactly at least. Not yet, but from the overwhelming, surreal sense that something was off. Not just strange wrong, because the doors were all locked. The ones they were supposed to use. It's dead-bolted from the inside. You needed a badge to get in or out. I walked back in slowly, checking every hallway, every office space. No signs of anyone. No wet footprints. No faint smell of cleaning fluid. Nothing. Just the same low hum of fluorescent lights, and the sound of my own heartbeat growing louder in my ears. I stood in the middle of the open office floor, frozen. My ears strained for anything, a cough, the rustle of a trash bag, even footsteps, but the silence pressed in like a weight, thick still, unnatural. I slowly made my way to the janitor's closet, tucked between the break room and supply storage. The door was shut, as usual. I twisted the knob, unlocked. I opened it, expecting to see the usual shelf of paper towels, mop heads, old jugs of cleaning solution. Instead, it looked untouched. The mop was dry. The rolling cart was there, but everything on it was perfectly arranged, like it hadn't been moved all night. The dustpan on the wall still had dust on it. Nothing had been used. I shut the door carefully and stood still for a long moment. My heart had started pounding. I told myself maybe I had imagined the sounds. Maybe I was tired, overworked. Maybe the crew had come and gone quickly and I just hadn't noticed. But that didn't track. I saw someone walk by my office. They were wearing the same navy blue uniforms I'd seen for the past year. I looked down at my watch. 9:17 p.m. And just like that, I felt the cold creep in. Not physically, something deeper. That strange old instinct you don't get in office buildings. The feeling that something is watching. I spun around. Nobody there. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. I grabbed my laptop bag and walked briskly back to my office, trying to shake off the dread. Just get your stuff. Get to the car. Get home. But as I passed the long glass window in the conference room, I swear Rye caught a reflection. It's not mine. Someone's standing just at the end of the hall near the copier. Dark hair. I brought extra coffee and my Bluetooth speaker, tried to make it feel normal. Made sure people saw me there, so someone would remember if I went missing or something. Around 8 o'clock, the building got quiet again. No vacuum, no carts, no voices. I waited. Nothing. Then at exactly 8:15, the break room light flicked on. This time, I didn't freeze. I stood up, slowly walked to the doorway of my office, and peered toward the break room. The light was on, bright, steady. No flicker this time, just ... on. But no footsteps, no door slam, no clatter of plastic bins or chairs being dragged. Stepped out into the hallway, my heart thudding in a slow, dull rhythm. My sneakers were silent on the carpet. Halfway to the break room, I called out, "Hello?" No answer. The hum of the overhead fluorescence felt too loud, like it was trying to drown out something else, something underneath it all. I reached the break room and pushed the door open. Empty. Of course it was. The sink was dry. Trash can still full. Chairs neatly tucked in. Lights on, but no one there. I was about to turn around and leave when I noticed something odd. The vending machine had a smudge on the glass. A wide one, like someone had leaned their whole forehead against it. It was recent, hadn't even begun to dry. I leaned in, peering at the mark. The edges had ridges like a pattern, like fingerprints. No, not fingerprints, palm prints, 2 of them, wide apart, one high, one low. Like someone had pressed themselves hard against the glass, as if looking inside too closely, ... or bracing. And next to them, just beneath the flickering light above the snack rack, was a single wet breath mark. Fogged, slowly fading. That's when I heard it from behind me. Faint footsteps, deliberate. I turned fast. The hallway was empty. Dead empty. And yet, ... they were getting louder. Coming from the far end. Just out of sight, just around the bend, behind the printer alcove. Click, click, click. I backed into the break room and reached for my phone with shaking fingers. No signal. I don't even know why I tried. I was on the office Wi-Fi. But the bars were gone. No LTE, no connection. The footsteps paused, then picked up again faster now. My breath caught. Just like that, the break room light went out. Pitch black. I slammed the door shut. There's no lock. I grabbed the chair nearest the wall and wedged it under the handle. My body was on fire with panic, every nerve awake. I waited. Nothing. Then the sound that nearly made me lose it completely. Knocking, slow, rhythmic 3 knocks. Then silence. I didn't move. I just sat on the floor, back against the fridge, breathing through my shirt to muffle the panic. After what felt like 10 minutes, I got the nerve to stand. The door was still closed, the chair wedged tight. I opened it slowly. The hallway was bright, silent, empty, like nothing had happened. I didn't stay long after that. I grabbed my bag, unplugged my laptop, and walked straight out. I didn't even turn off the lights. I didn't care. I walked with purpose, like I was late for something, like I had somewhere safe to be. But I didn't feel safe again for days. I spent that weekend trying to shake it. Told myself I imagined it all. That maybe someone was there that night, another staffer working late. Maybe even a prank by some night shift intern. A stretch, but it's the kind of lie you want to believe when the truth feels wrong in your bones. I didn't tell anyone. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think there's a ghost janitor haunting the break room? No, I kept quiet. And for weeks, everything seemed fine again. I didn't stay late. I didn't push my luck, till I overheard something that pulled me back in. It was a Tuesday, around 3 p.m. I was in the copy room, waiting on a stack of expense reports, when I heard 2 junior analysts talking outside the door. One of them, Sam, I think, was saying, ... I swear I saw her again. She was just standing at the end of the hall, by HR, holding that mop. Didn't say a word, just stared. I looked down for like a second, and when I looked back on, the other one laughed. Maybe she quit and no one told facilities. No, man. That's the thing. I asked Ramon. He said no woman's ever worked that shift. I didn't move. I didn't blink. When I walked back to my desk, I pulled up the security email directory and fired off a message to facilities. I didn't ask anything specific, just a request. Hey, can I get the security footage from our office floor last Thursday between 8 to 9 p.m.? Reviewing a potential issue for compliance? An hour later, Ramon sent me a reply. There was an attachment. I opened the clip. It was a black and white security cam angle from the end of the hallway outside the break room. Timestamp. Thursday, 8:17 p.m. At first, nothing. Just the hallway, faintly lit, the glow of the exit sign at the far end. Then, from the left edge of the frame, ... movement, a figure stepped into view. It was hard to see clearly grainy feet, but they were tall, wearing something pale, a uniform loose-fitting, almost shapeless. They walked slowly, then stopped, right in front of the break room door. They stood there for 47 seconds, motionless, facing the door, facing me. I know that sounds crazy, but I felt it. Then they tilted their head, just a few degrees, as if listening. Then they turned and walked backward. Yes, backward out of the frame. The timestamp kept rolling for another minute. Nothing else happened. But just as I was about to close the file, the very last frame of the video glitched. For a single second, the screen scrambled, and then, for one flash of a moment, the hallway lights in the footage went dark, like they had that night. And when the image came back, there was no one in the frame, not the figure, not even the hallway, just black. I haven't worked late since. I switched departments. I told myself it was for my mental health. I told my boss I wanted more daylight hours. She agreed, said I looked pale lately. I didn't tell her that some nights I still wake up convinced I hear a cart rolling down the hallway outside my bedroom. Or that once just one sigh walked out to my living room at 3 a.m. and saw the reflection of a person in my dark TV screen. ... But no one standing behind me. I never truly believed in ghosts until the night I locked them all in. I've been a night custodian at Willow Creek Middle School for nearly a decade. 8 hours of ambient hums and empty hallways had conditioned me to their odd symphony, the squeak of gym floorboards, the flicker of an aging fluorescent in the science lab, the whisper of the boiler in the basement vents. It was both relaxing and utterly lonely, which was exactly how I liked it. This happened late one Friday, around midnight. I'd cleaned the cafeteria and scrubbed the lockers. I'd emptied the trash from the library and mopped the floors near the computer lab. With every swipe of a mop, I felt like I was chasing away the day, sweeping it into memories that didn't belong in the dark. By the time I got to the 6th grade wing lights flickering, hallway glowing in dim rectangles of fluorescent hum, I realized how late it was. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife reminding me to stop for milk before heading home, which made me smile. I replied quickly, grabbed my keyring, and shut off the lights one by one. The overhead fixtures blinked out, leaving me in twilight. I never rushed turning off lights, ever. It's part of the job, that moment of stillness right before the silence sets in. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, quick. In the distance, down the hall beyond the lockers. I froze. My heart, muffled by years of predictability, thumped in my chest. I flicked on the flashlight on my keyring, narrow beam slicing through the dark. Nothing. Just rows of lockers, empty floor. I turned to leave when something shifted in my peripheral vision. A shadow, slender and child-sized, shot from the end of the hallway and vanished around the corner. I was certain I'd locked every external door. The school's security system beeps when they're opened after hours. All should have been secure. I swallowed, letting fear be mistaken for routine. "Hello?" said voice cracked, bouncing down the hall. No response, just the faint hum of fluorescent bulbs shutting down downstairs. My mind raced cleanup crew, students sneaking around. But then I looked. Badge doors were locked, every alarm panel light green, meaning secured. Still, I followed the silhouette's trail. I rounded the corner. Nothing. Hallway cold, empty, no sign of anyone. I stopped, fist tight on my flashlight, chest rumbling as if the vents had suddenly changed pitch. I kept walking, every step loud on the wax tile, the beam of my flashlight trembling just slightly in my hand. Not from cold, but from that creeping, animal part of me that knew something wasn't right. There shouldn't be anyone here. No night classes, no after-school events, nothing. I turned down the main sixth-grade corridor. It's the one lined with inspirational posters and art projects still pinned to corkboards. Despite the janitorial staff constantly having to straighten them, the silence here felt thicker, heavier, like walking underwater. That's when I saw it. A classroom door at the far end of the hallway, open, just a crack. I had a system go down one side, check every knob, then double back. That room had been locked not 20 minutes ago. I moved slowly, flashlight outstretched. The door creaked as I nudged it open with my boot. It was room 117, Ms. Harlan's English class. Empty desks. World map on the back wall. A whiteboard with neat cursive writing from the day before. Don't forget your weekend reading. And in the back corner, near the cubbies, where the kids stored their backpacks, was a single, tiny shoe print, damp. Too small to be one of the teachers. I crouched down, and that's when I noticed a faint trail leading from the cubbies across the floor, like something had walked there with wet feet. The pattern shimmered faintly under the flashlight. Heel, toe, heel, toe. Then it stopped right in the center of the room and vanished. My brain kicked into overdrive. Maybe a kid had stayed behind, hiding until everyone was gone. It didn't explain the wet footprints, or the silence, or why the shadow I saw had run like it wasn't hiding but leading. I backed out of the room and shut the door tight behind me. Then I heard it again, running. The sound of bare feet slapping on teal behind me. I whipped around, flashlight shaking now, empty hallway. But now the air felt different, charged, like right before a thunderstorm. The kind of energy that raises every hair on your arm. And from way down the corridor so far it echoed off the lockers. A giggle. Hello. A child's voice. But not joyful. More like something pretending to sound like joy. I took a step back, and every single light in the hallway blinked off. By one. Pop. 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 Darkness swallowed me. My breath caught in my throat. The silence after the lights died was so complete, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. And my flashlight was still on, the narrow beam cutting a lonely cone into the dark, but it didn't feel like enough anymore. I turned in a slow circle, heart thudding, eyes scanning every shadow, as if something might step out from one. I backed up toward the stairwell that led to the custodial supply room. If I could just make it there, lock the door, maybe call the night supervisor, I didn't know what I'd say. As a barefoot child goes sprinting through the sixth-grade hall. It sounded insane. But when I turned the corner toward the stairwell, I stopped short. There, crouched halfway up the stairs, was a figure. Small. Still. Not more than 4 feet tall. It didn't move. I lifted the flashlight beam toward it. The light trembled as I raised it, and the thing bolted, crawling up the stairs on all fours with unnatural speed, limbs jerking like a puppet yanked on tangled strings. I ran. I didn't decide. I just moved. Instinct kicked in, legs pumping down the hall toward the front office. I could lock myself in, call someone, do anything, but keep standing in that cursed hallway. As I sprinted, I heard it running again, matching my pace, but not behind me, above me, across the ceiling. The crawlspace vents creaked and I could hear something dragging, scraping as it moved overhead, keeping up with every step I took. I threw open the door to the front office, slammed it shut, locked it, and backed away. The room was dim, only the emergency night lights glowing red near the fire exit. I stared up at the ceiling tiles, heart pounding so loud I almost missed it. Another giggle, closer this time, not from the hallway. From inside the office. I turned toward the break area, just beyond the copy machine, and saw a child-sized shadow dart behind the water cooler. My flashlight beam caught only the tail end of the movement, a blur of black limbs, far too fast. I aimed the light and said, "Hey, enough. Who are you?" Nothing. Then, slowly, from the shadows beyond the counter, a head peeked out, just the silhouette. But the size, the angle, it was all wrong. It leaned, tilted at a curve like it had no spine, like it was curious. Watching me, I blinked and it was gone. Gone like it had never been there at all. I backed up until I hit the far wall, phone in my hand, fingers fumbling for the emergency number for school security. I never even got the chance to hit call. Because every phone in the office mine, the landlines, Even the old fax machine started ringing at once. The shrill chorus of ringing filled the small office like an alarm, each tone slightly out of sync, overlapping into a jarring wall of noise. I clutched my phone tighter, eyes darting between the landlines. The lights on the desk phones blinked wildly, line 1, line 2, line 3, all lighting up like some invisible force was playing them like piano keys. And then, just as suddenly as it began, silence. Total, suffocating silence. Not even the low hum of the air vents. It's just me, standing frozen with my phone clenched so tightly I felt the casing strain under my fingers. And from behind the front desk counter, something whispered, "I see you."
Hi.
My whole body locked up. It wasn't a child's voice this time. It was deep, like gravel being dragged through a pipe, trying to mimic the sound of a little kid. Like whatever was speaking, didn't he really know what a child should sound like? It was just trying to pass. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My voice was gone. I crept along the edge of the office wall, keeping the desk between me and the space where the voice had come from. The red glow from the emergency exit light cast long shadows that moved even when I didn't tee. I reached the supply closet at the back. It locked from the inside. I darted in, closed the door, and turned the latch, all while holding my breath. Darkness again. No window. I crouched on the floor. Flashlight off. No, I didn't want to give myself away. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding like a war drum in my chest. 10 seconds passed. 20. 30. Then something pressed softly against the door from the outside. Just a touch at first. Then a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Followed by the unmistakable sound of a child humming. Off-key. Meandering. The kind of tune a kid might make up to themselves while playing alone. But the longer it went on, the more it sounded. Wrong. It looped. The same few notes over and over, like a recording of a child's voice, glitched and repeating endlessly. Not natural. Not human. I clamped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut, and then abrupt silence again. No knock. No humming. No breath outside the door. I waited and waited. Finally, after what felt like an hour but was probably only 5 minutes, I cracked the door open. The office was empty. I crept out, scanning every corner with my flashlight. Still nothing. I moved to the main hallway, ready to make a break for the exit doors, and stopped cold. Every classroom door was wide open now, every single one. Doors I had personally locked, drawn in wet footprints, tiny, bare, child-sized prints, was a trail leading down the hallway and turning left, toward the library wing. That wing didn't have an exit, just more darkness. I didn't want to go that way. Everything in me said don't follow. Whatever was leaving those prints, it wanted me to. I wasn't stupid. I knew enough horror stories, urban legends, real-life missing persons cases to know that following the trail is how people disappear. But I also knew I couldn't leave without making sure I was really alone. Because what if it wasn't something paranormal? What if it was a kid? What if someone really was in the building? Somehow some disturbed person, or worse, someone playing a sick game. My jaw clenched. My flashlight flickered as I turned the beam down the long hallway toward the library. The wet footprints shimmered faintly under the light, perfectly formed. The toes and heels pressed into the waxed tile floor like they'd just been made. I could even see droplets around them, like someone had stepped straight out of a pool. I crept forward. The hallway felt longer than usual. Sound seemed to die in the air, muffled by the silence pressing down from the ceiling. Every door I passed was cracked open just enough that I couldn't see fully inside, but wide enough that I could imagine something crouching behind them, waiting for me to get close. I walked in the middle of the hall. When I reached the library door, the footprints stopped. Right at the threshold, and the door. It was ajar, just slightly. It's not enough to see in. Just a sliver of blackness beyond. I leaned forward and gently nudged the door with the toe of my boot. It opened. The library was pitch black. My flashlight reached maybe halfway through before the beam gave out entirely into shadow. I stepped inside. Instantly, the temperature dropped. No airflow, no hum of vents, just stale, cold air hanging heavy in the room. I whispered hello. My voice came out strange flat, like it was being swallowed. A low scrape answered from the far left side of the library. Not a footstep, not a knock, a dragging sound. Like something heavy was being pulled slowly across carpet. I swung the flashlight that way, pulse pounding. It caught something small, curled between two rows of bookshelves. I froze. It was a child, kneeling on the floor, face away from me, hair stringy and wet, clinging to their neck and back, clothes dark, soaked through. Their hands moved slowly across the carpet, like they were drawing something. I couldn't speak. My voice had left me again. Then, the child turned its head, not the body, just the head toward me, and smiled. The face was wrong. The mouth was too wide. The eyes were too dark. And in a voice that sounded far older than it looked, it whispered, "You shouldn't be here alone." I stumbled back a step, the flashlight quivering in my hand. That smile burned into my brain like an afterimage. The face didn't move beyond that grotesque grin, it just watched. The eyes like bottomless pits locked onto mine, head cocked at an impossible angle, mouth stretched wider than it had any right to. I turned and ran, didn't think, didn't look back, just tore out of the library. And down the hallway, boots thudding across the tile, echoing through the empty school like gunshots. Doors blurred past, me-open classrooms like mouths in the dark. When I rounded the corner back toward the main office, my hand flew to my hip. I had no weapon, no spray, nothing. All I could think about was getting to the exit. But when I reached the front doors, they wouldn't open. Locked, both of them. I slammed my fist against the push bar, yanked the handle. Nothing. I turned back toward the office, thinking I'd grab my keys. Something was standing in the hallway now. At the other end, small, still, just watching me. I couldn't make out the face in the dark, but I knew it was her. The shadow child, or the thing that wore her shape. And behind her, were silhouettes. Several. Lurking just outside the glow of the red exit light, their heads low, some on all fours, some shifting like they were unsure of the shapes they were in. One of them was crawling backward across the ceiling. My brain buckled under the sight. I fell back against the door, breathing hard, trembling all over. I whispered, "Please." A voice hissed in my ear right behind me. "You were alone. Now you're not." I spun around. No one there. Then the lights overhead flickered, once, twice, and came back on fully. The hallway was empty. The doors behind me clicked and locked. I bolted. Didn't care about the alarm. Didn't care about the cameras. I tore through the doors into the cool night, sucking air into my lungs like I hadn't breathed in hours. The parking lot was empty. No kids. No figures. Just my car. I didn't even go back for my stuff. I drove. Didn't stop until I hit the all-night diner a few towns over and parked under the brightest lights I could find. I sat in that booth until sunrise, hands shaking too badly to hold a coffee cup. That night, I sat in my car outside the school for 20 minutes, staring at the dark windows, Rick's warning repeating over and over in my head. Don't follow her. Don't speak to her. Don't go into the library after midnight. Should have quit right then. But rent was due, and I didn't have the luxury of skipping another paycheck. So, against every instinct screaming in my gut, I grabbed my flashlight, stepped out of the car, and walked inside. I kept the overhead lights on. Every room I cleaned, I whistled loudly, like if I made enough sound, nothing could sneak up on me. The whole time I avoided the east hallway, didn't even glance toward the library. Made it through the entire shift. No shadows, no whispers, no wet footprints. It's just me and my mop bucket. I started to think maybe that was it. Maybe I'd scared myself so bad the last time I conjured half of it. By 4:40 a.m., I was nearly done. I left the office lights on and headed to the break room to grab my thermos. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not footsteps. Something lighter. Tap, tap. Like fingers. Coming from the library doors. I froze in the hallway just outside the break room, heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. I could see the double doors to the library, still closed, still locked, but the vertical window in one of them. There was a face in it, pressed against the glass, eyes wide, mouth open. She was watching me. No. I dropped my thermos and backed away, fast. My boots skidded on the tile. I turned to Runand, froze again. The hallway behind me was no longer empty. 4 shapes stood under the flickering light. Not children. Not even people. Things. Pale, wrong-limbed things that used to look human. Now they swayed like broken marionettes, eyes too far apart, teeth too many. One of them had a face that looked like it was painted on upside down. Lights flickered again and they moved, closer. I bolted down the hall, past the nurse's office, past the staff lounge. I slammed into the stairwell door and nearly fell down the steps. Every light I passed buzzed and flickered as I ran. I don't remember unlocking the exit. I don't remember starting my car. I just remember speeding out of that lot, tires screaming, until the school was nothing but a shadow behind me. Never went back. I quit the next day by phone. Didn't even go in for my last check. I had to mail it. Every now and then, when I pass that side of town, I feel a tightness in my chest. Like if I look too long at the school building, something inside might look back. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd followed her, if I'd walked through those library doors when I first saw her, but I don't think I was supposed to save her. I think she was trying to pull me into whatever place she came from. And I think if I'd hesitated even a moment longer that night, I'd still be in there, trapped in a dark hallway, forever cleaning floors that never stay clean. It was a Thursday night, sometime in March, cold enough that the wind coming off the East River cut right through the lobby glass. Quiet. The kind of quiet you only get in the city after 2 o'clock a.m. The rats are asleep. The drunks have gone home and the city just ... exhales. I was the only one on shift at Capstone Technologies Midtown HQ. 12 floors, mostly dark, with just the security desk light on and the elevator humming occasionally when it reset its floor alignment. Most nights I didn't see a soul. I made my rounds, filled out the clipboard, half-watched old sitcoms on the grainy lobby monitor, and kept my coffee warm. That night started no different. Until 3:17 a.m., that's when the freight elevator dinged. Now, that thing was never used after hours, not unless maintenance was scheduled. I damn well knew no one was supposed to be in the building. No one had signed in. No call-ins. Nothing. The freight doors slid open slowly. I just watched from my station, squinting at the live feed from the second-floor camera. Nothing visible inside the elevator, just a sliver of darkness. Walked toward the service stairwell with my flashlight. The freight opens up to the 12th floor executive offices. No one had any business being up there. I took the stairs, quiet as I could. You develop this instinct working nights a sense of when something's wrong. And my gut was already twisting before I even hit floor 11. Then I heard it. A faint, echoing sound. A single bang, not loud and muffled. Like it had happened behind a closed door, then nothing. Just the hum of electricity and that same eerie quiet. I climbed the last flight. My flashlight beam scanned the glass conference room, the hallway leading to the president's corner office. There was a smell, sharp, metallic blood. I knew it before I saw it. Then I reached the door, the president's office. Arthur Kessler's personal domain. Frosted glass panels, lights off, smeared right across the inside of the glass. A handprint, blood red, slid halfway down before fading. My hand was trembling as I reached for the knob, locked but through the glass. I could just barely make it out. A figure slumped sideways in the leather chair behind the desk. Blood pooled under it. I backed away and fumbled for my radio, but I didn't get a chance to speak. Because when I turned just before bolting down the hallway, someone was standing at the end of it. A man in a white button-up, loose tie and slacks, pale hair matted. I froze. He stared at me, didn't move. Then he opened his mouth, but nothing came out. No sound, no breath. And before I could say a word, he turned the corner and disappeared behind the wall. I didn't chase him. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. My mouth was dry. My whole body had gone cold in that sharp, unexplainable way that only happens when you're absolutely certain something is not right. I backed up slowly, radio still clenched in my hand, thumb trembling over the button. This is Wells. I finally croaked into it. We got an incident on floor 12. Possible fatality. Someone else is in the building, requesting immediate police assistance. The dispatcher answered calm and clipped, said someone would be there in under 5. I didn't go anywhere near the office again. I took the elevator back down and locked the main lobby doors behind me, and waited. Pressed against the marble wall across from the doors, listening to the tick of the wall clock and watching the elevators like they might open on their own. Eventually, I heard the distant wail of sirens, then flashing reds and blues smeared across the lobby glass. 2 NYPD cruisers and a squad SUV rolled up. I let them in with shaking hands, pointed upstairs. One officer stayed with me. The rest went up. They were quiet when they came back down. Told me the man in the office had a self-inflicted gunshot wound. No one else was found on the floor. No signs of a break-in. No alarms tripped. No cameras saw him arrive. But the identity, they confirmed it within 20 minutes. It's Simon Berg. Junior logistics analyst. He'd been terminated almost 4 months ago. After what they described as a behavioral concern, no badge access, no security clearance, and yet there he was, dead in the president's office. A .38 revolver in his hand. And not a single person could figure out how he'd gotten in. There were no forced entries, no broken locks. He hadn't used the front desk, hadn't been seen by anyone else in the building, just appeared. The cops pulled footage, but when they checked the hallway camera, the one I'd seen him walk down, nothing. They rewound it 3 times in front of me. There was no one on that tape. No man, no movement. I just mean, backing away, talking into the radio. It's fixed on something that apparently wasn't there. Working nights at the Hillshade Inn outside Albany isn't exactly thrilling. It's more repetition than drama log bookings. Reset the snack bar, watch reruns behind the counter. You see the same kinds of guests, traveling salespeople, construction crews, and occasionally sports teams passing through town. That Thursday night started no differently. Just after 9 p.m., group of 7 checked in 6 college-aged guys and a man in his late 40s wearing a faded Jefferson College baseball hoodie. The younger ones were loud, joking with each other while their coach, who introduced himself as Brad Kingston, handled check-in. He seemed tired but friendly. He asked if the rooms had balconies, laughed at his own joke, and signed the paperwork like he'd done it 1,000 times. I gave them adjoining rooms on the 3rd floor, end of the hall. As they headed to the elevator, I overheard one of the guys ask, "You good tonight, coach?" Brad gave him a thumbs up but didn't say anything. Just kind of smirked. By 11 p.m., the lobby was quiet again. I brewed more coffee and scrolled through my phone, the usual routine. Could hear faint music from upstairs through the floor. Nothing unusual. But at 12:23 a.m., I heard the crash. It wasn't subtle. There was a heavy thud outside, like something hard hitting the pavement hand. Then car alarms started blaring. I rushed outside and immediately saw the body. He was lying face down in the landscaping just beneath room 312. Glass was scattered across the sidewalk. And the screen from the window hung halfway out. I could already tell he wasn't moving. It was Brad. I called 911 immediately. While I was on the phone, the guys from his group started pouring out of the elevator, probably alerted by the alarms and flashing lights. 2 of them saw him from the doorway and froze. One of them, blonde kid in a white hoodie, just kept saying, "No, no, no, no." Paramedics arrived within minutes, followed by local PD. They confirmed what I already knew. Coach Kingston hadn't survived the fall. They took statements from the players, and then from me. One officer walked with me back to the security room to review the footage. There wasn't anything wild or dramatic. No one pushed him. No one else was in the room at the time. Around 12:15 a.m., the camera in the hallway picked up Brad stepping out of room 312 alone. He had a small bottle, probably whiskey or vodka, staggered toward the vending machines, then back to his room. 10 minutes later, you can just barely see the reflection of the window in the far corner of the lock camera. It opens. Then he falls. That's it. No one could explain why he did it. But when the detective spoke to one of the players, they learned he'd been drinking more than usual lately. Apparently the team had lost their funding, and Coach Kingston was going to be out of a job at the end of the semester. One of the officers pulled me aside and said quietly, "We think it was either an accident or he jumped." The autopsy later showed a high back well over the legal limit. They ruled it an alcohol-related fall. Officially, not a suicide, but accidental death under intoxication. The next few nights, I worked with a second person at the desk. Company policy after an incident like that. Quiet at 12 a.m. felt heavier than before. There was no ghost, no figure at the window. Just a man, probably drunk, probably overwhelmed, and one bad decision at the worst time. I still remember how quiet it was when the sirens finally faded. Not eerie, just real, just heavy. I thought the midnight shift at Valley Range would be uneventful. I was 19, fresh out of high school, working an overnight gig to save for college. Valley Range sat off I-70 near Junction City. Kansas City had 2 diesel pumps, a handful of vending machines, and a fried chicken kiosk that shut down by 10. Most nights, nothing ever happened. Just the hum of fluorescent lights, the drone of the cooler, and faint country music on one of the broken lobby speakers. This started like any other night. My shift began at 11:45 p.m. Randy, my manager, was already out sick. I noted in the safe. Doors locked after midnight. Truck guys only. I nodded and got to it, polishing the counter, restocking snacks, checking that nobody had written anything strange on the restroom mirror. Around 12:37 a.m., a car's headlights pulled into the lot. It wasn't a semi-truck, like we usually saw. It was an old, dark, red-crowned Victoria, kind of sleazy, taped-up driver's side mirror, tinted windows. It rolled in slow, engine idling. I watched through the glass as it stopped directly in front of the entrance. He didn't come inside, just sat there. After a few minutes, I saw movement in the passenger seat. A woman's lumped, unresponsive. You couldn't mistake that look for sleeping. It was more like the blink had frozen mid-closed. I froze too, hand hovering over the phone, but I didn't touch it. I didn't know what I was looking at yet. Then the man stepped out. He had heavy shoes, a leather jacket, scruffy hair. He rapped on the door with a knuckle once and said in kind of a hushed voice, "She's passed out. I think she needs help." I swallowed hard. "We need to call emergency services," I said, my voice steady, even if my hands shook. He nodded and went back inside the car. I picked up the phone behind the counter and dialed 911. My heart was thudding so hard it felt like the floor was vibrating. Even though I was standing still, the dispatcher answered fast, and I tried to keep my voice calm. "There's a man here at Valley Range truck stop," I said. He pulled up in a Crown Vic. There's a woman in the passenger seat. He's unresponsive. He says she passed out, but I paused, eyeing the windshield. I don't think she's breathing. The dispatcher asked a few questions: what direction the car came from, what the man looked like, whether I could see any weapons. I told her I couldn't be sure about a weapon, but something didn't feel right. She said officers were on their way. The man came back to the door and motioned for me to unlock it. I held up a hand and shook my head. "Sir, police are on the way. You need to stay outside." That changed something in him. His posture stiffened. He didn't yell or pound, but his eyes locked on mine through the glass and stayed there, long enough that I had to look away. Then he backed off, walked slowly around to the passenger side, and opened her door. I watched as he stood there, kind of hovering over her, like he couldn't decide whether to touch her or not. Her head lolled to the side, limp. Her arms didn't move. I pressed myself lower behind the counter, just enough to peer through the bottom of the windows. He didn't try CPR. He didn't even check for a pulse. Just stood there like he was waiting. Waiting for what? I gripped the phone tight, even though the call had ended. After maybe a minute, he gently pushed her body back against the seat, closed the door, and leaned against the hood. He lit a cigarette with a shaky hand. I wanted the cops to get there faster. I didn't know if I was looking at a victim of something tragic, something monstrous. The smell of smoke started to creep in through the gaps in the entrance doors. He was still standing there, cigarette barely hanging from his mouth, staring off into the dark lot like he was trying to decide whether to leave or just wait. I kept watching him through the thin vertical slit in the window near the register. He wasn't pacing, wasn't panicking, he was just still. That bothered me more than if he'd been freaking out. There was something about the calmness, the way he kept glancing at the truck stop sign flickering above the pumps, like he was keeping time with it. Every few seconds, blink, 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 pause. Then I noticed something else. There was no license plate on the front of the car. I quickly ducked below the counter again and yanked out the small, laminated emergency protocol sheet the night manager had gone over during my orientation. If I hadn't been so nervous, I might have found it funny how the laminated card was mostly about spills, petty theft, and power outages. Nothing about this. The first line read, "Call law enforcement immediately if a person on the premises is in medical distress, or if a customer becomes violent." No mention of if a body shows up in the front seat of a car. I glanced up again. He wasn't leaning anymore. He was in the car, engine on, lights still off. His window was down, and he was talking to the woman. Not yelling, not trying to wake her, just talking, muttering. The words didn't carry, but I could see the movement of his jaw, slow and deliberate. Headlights flashed suddenly behind him, 2 sheriff's vehicles pulling in fast, lights off, but moving with purpose. The man looked up into the rearview mirror, and then, like it was nothing at all, he stepped out of the car again, hands already lifted. I couldn't breathe. One of the deputies called out, told him to step back. The other approached the passenger side, hand on his holster. When he opened the door and looked in, he froze, then immediately started shouting into his radio. I couldn't hear much, but I heard the word DOA. Dead on arrival. So she was gone. I don't know what I expected to feel. Relief? Closure? But I felt sick instead. Like I'd just watched something private unfold. Something I was never meant to witness. I stayed behind the counter as they cuffed him and led him away. He didn't resist, didn't cry, didn't speak, just walked with his head down, slow and obedient. The ambulance showed up soon after. They took her away, covered in a pale blue sheet. Worked 3 more nights before quitting. Every car that pulled up after that, I watched like it might carry another body, another secret. I never found out what really happened. Maybe she overdosed. Maybe it was something worse. But I'll never forget the way he looked at me through the glass like he was. And he's sure if I was his witness, his confessor, or his next problem.